In a small, bustling town, known for its vibrant markets and diverse population, a young man named Edom was deeply troubled. He had recently come across a series of debates and writings that challenged his understanding of religion and historical figures. The crux of his turmoil centered around the portrayal of Prophet Muhammad as a warlord. Adam's distress was fueled by the arguments of Samharris, an evangelical atheist who contended that Islam was an inherently dangerous belief system. Harris claimed that Prophet Muhammad was a fundamentally negative and destructive role model, especially when compared to Christianity and the Christian version of Jesus. According to Harris, Islam promotes aggression, warfare, and the establishment of political authority because the Quran includes verses about combat, and Prophet Muhammad led battles and established a state. For example, Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 190, instructs fighting in self-defense. And historical battles like Badr and Uhud are cited as evidence of Islam's militant nature. In contrast, Harris highlights Christianity's teachings through Jesus, emphasizing pacifism, peacefulness, and a de-emphasis on terrestrial rule. Jesus' Sermon on the Mount, advocating turning the other cheek and blessing peacemakers, and his advice to render unto Caesar, suggest a separation from political power. Harris argues that Jesus' teachings discourage violence and political ambition, portraying him as a figure of peace and humility, unlike the image of Prophet Muhammad in the Muslim context. Sitting in the quiet corner of a local coffee shop, Adam reflected on these assertions. How could this be true? He pondered. Is Prophet Muhammad really just a warlord? And if so, what does that mean for Muslims like me? As Adam delved deeper into Harris's arguments, he realized that the image of Prophet Muhammad being portrayed was vastly different from the one familiar to him and his community. Harris depicted the Prophet as a warlord, a bloody conqueror whose example could potentially incite violence among devout Muslims. However, this portrayal was held primarily by certain Christians and Westerners, many of whom had limited knowledge of the Prophet, or approached the subject with ideological biases. Harris's argument suggested that because Muslims admired a figure depicted as a warlord, they would inevitably become prone to violence as they tried to follow his example. This assertion troubled Adam because it ignored the broader, more nuanced understanding of Prophet Muhammad that he had grown up with. A leader known for his mercy, justice, and balanced approach to conflict and peace. This Western misrepresentation starkly contrasted with the Prophet's image in the Muslim world, where he was seen as a compassionate and wise guide in all aspects of life. However, Adam knew this depiction was far from the truth. To understand the full picture, he decided to explore further. He reached out to scholars, read historical texts, and engaged in discussions with knowledgeable friends. Through this journey, he discovered the profound difference between the Western portrayal of Prophet Muhammad and the image cherished by Muslims. One evening, Adam found himself in the company of Professor Ahmed, a well-respected historian and Islamic scholar. Over tea, Adam shared his concerns and the conflicting views he had encountered. Professor, how do we reconcile the image of Prophet Muhammad as a warlord with the image of him as a merciful and just leader? Adam asked, his voice tinged with confusion. Professor Ahmed smiled kindly. Adam, it's essential to understand the context and the entirety of Prophet Muhammad's life. Since we Muslims believe in him as our prophet and study the Quran and his life with him as our role model, we must take into account the Muslim perspective. Hence, it is neither wise nor fair to view the Prophet's life through the lens of a non-Muslim, especially when that perspective is biased and aims to tarnish his image. Moreover, because this is an Islamic matter, we should rely on Islamic sources and scholars for an accurate understanding, rather than turning to non-Islamic sources or scholars. First of all, we must remember what Allah says in the Quran. If anyone saves a life, it would be as if he saved the life of all mankind. And if anyone kills a person, it would be as if he killed all mankind. Surah Al-Ma'idah, Ayah 32. This emphasizes the sanctity of human life in Islam. However, realistically, we face situations where taking a life becomes unavoidable. In such circumstances, Allah permits us to defend ourselves. During a war, Allah doesn't expect us to be passive while being attacked. Taking life under certain circumstances is permitted because Allah has allowed it, recognizing it as a necessity. Yet, Allah continuously reminds us to obey His commands and remember that taking life is only justified under specific conditions and is not to be taken lightly. Islam is foremost about saving lives, including our own. This is why suicide is haram or forbidden. The guidance of Prophet Muhammad in warfare and conflict situations was always within these ethical boundaries set by Allah, balancing the harsh realities of life with the overarching principles of mercy and justice. Take, for example, the story of Ali, radiallahu anhu, a cousin and son-in-law of Prophet Muhammad, known for his valor, piety, and wisdom. During the Battle of Khaybar, fought in 628 CE between the Muslims, led by Prophet Muhammad, and the Jewish tribes living in the oasis of Khaybar, Ali was engaged in combat with an enemy soldier. Ali overpowered the enemy and was about to deliver the final blow when the soldier, in a last act of defiance, spat in Ali's face. This action momentarily enraged Ali, and he paused. However, rather than giving in to anger and seeking personal revenge, Ali put away his sword and walked away, sparing the enemy's life. When questioned about his action, Ali explained that if he had killed the soldier at that moment, it would have been out of personal anger, rather than for the sake of Allah and the just cause for which they were fighting. By restraining himself, Ali demonstrated that his actions in battle were guided by a higher moral and ethical standard, reflecting the principles of Islam. He wanted to ensure that his actions were always in alignment with the will of Allah and not influenced by personal emotions or desires. This incident highlights the profound sense of justice and self-control emphasized in Islamic teachings. Ali's actions reflect the guidance we receive from the Prophet about conducting ourselves with honor and integrity, even in the most challenging circumstances. During Prophet Muhammad's time, the early Muslim community faced intense persecution and hostility from powerful tribes in Arabia. These threats were existential, putting the lives and freedom of Muslims at risk. When Prophet Muhammad led armies and engaged in combat, it was primarily in response to these specific threats and attacks. For example, the Battle of Badr occurred when the Quraysh, a prominent tribe in Mecca, mobilized to crush the Muslim community in Medina. The Muslims, vastly outnumbered and with limited resources, defended themselves in what became a critical turning point for their survival. Similarly, the Battle of Uhud took place when the Quraysh sought revenge after their defeat at Badr. Prophet Muhammad and his followers faced significant losses but managed to repel the attackers, again in defense of their community and beliefs. These defensive actions were not acts of aggression or conquest driven by a lust for power or authority. Instead, they were necessary measures taken to protect the safety, freedom, and religious practice of the Muslim community. Prophet Muhammad's leadership during these conflicts was guided by a commitment to justice, peace, and the establishment of a secure environment where Muslims could live and worship freely. Understanding these historical circumstances helps clarify that Prophet Muhammad's military engagements were driven by the need for self-defense and survival, rather than a desire for power or expansion. Permission to fight back has been given to those who are being fought because they were wronged. And indeed, Allah is competent to grant them victory. They are those who have been evicted from their homes without right, only because they say, "Our Lord is Allah." And were it not that Allah checks the people, some by means of others, there would have been demolished monasteries, churches, synagogues, and mosques in which the name of Allah is much mentioned. And Allah will surely support those who support Him. Indeed, Allah is powerful and exalted in might. Surah Al-Hajj, Ayah 39 and 40. This verse highlights that the permission to engage in combat was granted because Muslims were wronged and persecuted, underscoring the defensive nature of their military actions. Fight in the way of Allah, those who fight you, but do not transgress. Indeed, Allah does not like transgressors. Surah Al-Baqarah, Ayah 190. This verse clearly emphasizes that fighting is only permitted in self-defense and warns against transgression, indicating that the engagements were not for expansion or power, but for protection and justice. Adam listened intently as Professor Ahmed continued. In 7th century Arabia, conflict was a harsh reality. The Prophet navigated this reality with a balanced approach, using both diplomacy and defense when necessary. The term warlord is a misrepresentation, often used with a tinge of racism and a lack of understanding. Reflecting on my readings of Machiavelli, I noticed that in 16th century Italy, those who would be considered warlords were instead given honorific titles like princes, dukes, and kings. In Europe, these titles were reserved for their war leaders. But leaders from Asia, Africa, or Arabia were unfairly labeled as warlords. If Prophet Muhammad had been European, he would have been called a king or a prince, not a warlord. The professor's words resonated with Adam. He realized that the Western narrative, as espoused by critics like Harris, selectively highlighted certain aspects of the Prophet's life while ignoring others. This narrative was often used to paint Muslims in a negative light, suggesting that their role model encouraged violence. But what about the Christian version of Jesus? Adam asked. Harris argues that Jesus promoted peace and pacifism. Isn't that a better role model? Ahmed responded thoughtfully. Adam, consider this. Did the Christian Jesus command an army? No. Did he participate in combat? No. Did he establish and govern a state? Again, no. Despite these teachings, have Christians historically engaged in warfare, established states, and implemented legal systems that often contradict these principles? Yes. The title Commander-in-Chief for the President of the United States underscores the pragmatic realities of governance and national security, which can diverge significantly from the pacifist ideals of Jesus. If Jesus is upheld as the role model for Western societies, how do we reconcile these inconsistencies? His teachings, such as "Let he who is without sin cast the first stone," seem incompatible with the harsh realities of governance and international relations. This statement from Jesus emphasizes forgiveness and moral humility, implying that those who judge others must first examine their own moral standing. However, in the realm of governance, leaders often face decisions that involve balancing moral principles with practical considerations, such as national security and diplomatic relations. For instance, a leader may need to authorize military actions or negotiate treaties that are perceived as necessary for protecting their nation's interests, even if they involve morally ambiguous choices. In hierarchical structures, whether political or social, assertiveness and strategic decision-making are often valued traits for maintaining order and achieving goals. Therefore, while Jesus' teachings offer profound moral guidance, their application in governance and international relations must contend with the practical challenges of leadership and the complexities of real-world decision-making. Therefore, we must ask, is the Christian version of Jesus a practical and influential role model for navigating the complexities of the real world? The Sermon on the Mount's ideals, while profound, may not offer practical guidance for the governance and security challenges that states face daily. In contrast, Prophet Muhammad provided a model that addressed both spiritual and practical aspects of leadership, offering Muslims a comprehensive framework for ethical conduct in all spheres of life. Ahmed continued with conviction. Did Prophet Muhammad command an army? Yes, he did. Did he engage in combat? Yes, he did. Did he establish and govern a state? Yes, he did. Muslims understand these actions within the broader context of his teachings and example. Prophet Muhammad commanded the Muslim army during various military campaigns, such as the Battle of Badr and the Battle of Uhud, where he strategized and directed defensive maneuvers against hostile forces. He personally participated in battles, demonstrating bravery and leadership on the front lines alongside his companions. His actions during these conflicts were aimed at defending the Muslim community from external threats and preserving their right to practice Islam freely. After the migration to Medina, Prophet Muhammad played a pivotal role in establishing a functioning Islamic state. He enacted laws, mediated disputes, and provided guidance on matters of governance, thereby laying the foundation for a just and cohesive society based on Islamic principles. These examples illustrate Prophet Muhammad's multifaceted role as a military leader, a participant in defensive combat, and a statesman who actively governed to ensure the welfare and stability of the nascent Muslim community. Critics often fault Prophet Muhammad for participating in activities that are common to human societies, such as warfare, as if these actions diminish his role as a moral exemplar. However, it's crucial to recognize that he was not solely a warrior, but also a peacemaker. He led military campaigns when necessary for the defense of his community, yet he also sought diplomatic resolutions and entered into treaties. He demonstrated both justice in punishing wrongdoers and mercy in forgiving those who sought reconciliation. In 628 CE, Prophet Muhammad negotiated the Treaty of Hudaybiyah with the Quraysh tribe of Makkah. Despite initial tensions, the treaty established a truce between the Muslims and the Quraysh for 10 years, allowing for peaceful coexistence and the opportunity for spreading Islam peacefully. Throughout his prophethood, Prophet Muhammad engaged in diplomatic efforts with various tribes in Arabia. He sent emissaries to neighboring tribes to foster alliances, resolve disputes, and ensure peaceful relations, thereby promoting stability in the region. The conquest of Makkah in 630 CE provides a powerful example of Prophet Muhammad's commitment to forgiveness, mercy, and the humane treatment of adversaries. After years of persecution and conflict, Prophet Muhammad and his followers marched triumphantly into Mecca, the city of his birth and early life. Despite the years of opposition and conflict, Prophet Muhammad chose to forgive the people of Mecca for their past transgressions. During the conquest, he issued a general amnesty, declaring, "Whoever enters the house of Abu Sufyan is safe. Whoever lays down his arms is safe. Whoever locks his door is safe." This proclamation ensured the safety of all who remained in their homes or sought refuge in the sacred mosque, including those who had been staunch opponents of Islam. Prophet Muhammad specifically ordered his companions not to harm unarmed men, women, or children, emphasizing the sanctity of civilian lives. He also forbade the destruction of crops and trees, ensuring that the economic livelihood of the people of Makkah would not be disrupted. Through these actions, Prophet Muhammad exemplified his teachings of compassion, forgiveness, and reconciliation, demonstrating that victory does not necessitate vengeance. The conquest of Makkah stands as a profound example of Prophet Muhammad's commitment to peace and justice, even in the face of past conflicts and adversity. These examples highlight Prophet Muhammad's commitment to diplomacy, peacemaking, and his ability to resolve conflicts through negotiation and treaties, thereby promoting peace and stability within the community and with neighboring tribes. Prophet Muhammad exemplified these teachings of compassion, forgiveness, and reconciliation, not only during the conquest of Makkah in 630 CE, but also throughout his 23 years of prophethood, which included engaging in warfare for approximately 74 days. Notable among these were Battle of Badr, 624 CE, 1 day. Battle of Uhud, 625 CE, 1 day. Battle of the Trench, Kandak, 627 CE. Mainly a siege lasting approximately 30 days with little actual combat. Battle of Khaybar, 629 CE, approximately 20 days. Conquest of Makkah, 630 CE, 1 day, mainly a bloodless conquest. Battle of Hunain, 630 CE, 1 day. Siege of Taif, 630 CE, approximately 20 days. In total, he was involved in around 27 expeditions, known as Ghazwat, during which he planned or commanded numerous smaller raids and skirmishes. The total days spent in actual combat or military activity amount to 74 days. How can anyone label him a warlord when his military actions spanned only 74 days across 23 years of prophethood, where his actions consistently prioritized peace, justice, and compassion? Prophet Muhammad's actions and experiences underscore his commitment to diplomacy, peacemaking, and the ethical conduct of warfare, emphasizing the sanctity of civilian lives and the avoidance of unnecessary harm to non-combatants, which aligns with Islamic principles of justice and mercy. In every scenario, whether choosing combat or diplomacy, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ provided guidance that Muslims strive to emulate. His life offers a comprehensive model for navigating the complexities of human existence, presenting a realistic and holistic role model that contrasts with the idealized but often unattainable portrayal of figures in Western traditions. Idam spent the next few weeks reflecting on these insights. He observed the world around him, noting the contradictions in how societies, both Western and Eastern, upheld their ideals. He saw how Western leaders, while professing Christian values, engaged in political and military actions that were far from the teachings of Jesus. Conversely, he saw Muslims striving to balance their faith with the complexities of modern life, drawing guidance from the comprehensive example of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In his quiet moments, Adam wrote down his thoughts. He wrote about the nuanced and multifaceted life of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the mercy and justice he embodied, and the realistic approach he took in dealing with human affairs. He contrasted this with the often impractical and selectively followed teachings of the Christian version of Jesus, as interpreted by the West. Adam pondered further, considering Samharris's arguments. If Harris contends that Islam and Prophet Muhammad's sallallahu alaihi wasallam example are negative because they acknowledge the reality of conflict, contrasting this with Christianity's perceived emphasis on peace, Adam couldn't help but see a fundamental flaw. He reflected on how unrealistic and impractical it is to expect people to adhere strictly to teachings that ignore the complexities of human existence. Harris's critique seemed to overlook the pragmatic guidance that Prophet Muhammad's sallallahu alaihi wasallam example provides for Muslims facing real-world challenges. Whereas the idealized version of Jesus in Western interpretations often fails to address the practicalities of governance and international relations. One day, Adam shared his writings with a diverse group of friends, Muslims, Christians, and atheists alike. They engaged in a thoughtful and respectful dialogue, each bringing their perspectives to the table. Through these discussions, they began to understand the importance of looking beyond biased portrayals and recognizing the full humanity and teachings of historical figures. As Adam looked around at his friends, he felt a sense of peace. He had navigated his turmoil and emerged with a deeper understanding. He realized that the real challenge was not about choosing one role model over another, but about understanding the context, teachings, and values of each, and applying them in ways that promote justice, compassion, and peace in the world. And so, Adam's journey continued, not as a quest for definitive answers, but as a lifelong exploration of truth, understanding, and harmony.